Within the United Synagogue, we're immensely blessed to have literally thousands of young people in our care. This provides us with an immense opportunity to impact positively on their lives. However, together with that opportunity must come responsibility. We would have hoped that all the ills of our society out there, such as child abuse, would not be affecting our community in the way that it affects others. Sadly and tragically, that is not the case, and we are affected to the same extent as everyone else is. As a result, we have a great responsibility. A responsibility to ensure that we always do what is right. And that means that when something comes to our attention, we must report it to the relevant authorities. I'm so proud to be part of a religious organization which subscribes to these values and recognizes how important it is to do what is right for the sake of those in our care. And thank you so much for being part of everything we're doing and all of our aspirations in this regard.
The aim of this film is to provide a basic and foundational understanding to all those who give so generously of their time volunteering for the United Synagogue, as well as for our much valued staff. We're so grateful to our incredible volunteers who perform many crucial roles for the charity, which will often bring them into contact with children to varying degrees. The United Synagogue, its employees and our volunteers have a duty of care to safeguard all children involved in activities undertaken by us or on behalf of us. Together, we strive to provide a safe environment for children to be able to actively participate in all of the activities that our communities have to offer. We also have a legal obligation to ensure that all our volunteers and all our staff have the tools they need to support safeguarding and to support the difficult issues that arise when a child is or has been abused.
Safeguarding is people and organisations working together to prevent and stop both the risks and experience of abuse or neglect. As soon as we're aware that someone may be at risk of abuse or neglect, we have a legal responsibility to act in a timely and appropriate manner, as well as to keep a record of our concerns and how we dealt with them. The main piece of law that outlines our obligations is the Children Act, which states that people working in public bodies who interact with children in their everyday work have an obligation to safeguard children, to promote the welfare of children, and to know what procedures they need to follow. This applies to us specifically through a provision in a document called Working Together to Safeguard Children, which applies the Children Act to faith organisations and provides important government guidance.
It includes various types of safe procedures for organisations to follow, including professional leads with clear lines of accountability. It details reporting and how this should be done in an appropriate manner. It stresses our obligation for training across the organisation with the appropriate level, as well as creating a culture across the charity of listening to children. We should be aware of the signs and symptoms of abuse. We should always act in the child's best interests. We should not be complacent. It could happen here. We should have regular training.
The United Synagogue takes its responsibility with regards to these obligations very seriously. We strive to create a responsive, supportive culture with a responsive leadership approach, where people are encouraged to come forward and share any concerns in the knowledge that they will be listened to and that effective action will be taken. We need all of our staff and all of our volunteers to share the responsibility in creating this culture, and that starts with raising awareness so that we can all be vigilant.
There are 4 key principles involved in protecting children. The first is responsibility, namely the responsibility of everybody to ensure they do what they can to keep children safe. The second is the everyday principle, in that every day counts. We have to act in a timely fashion to protect children. The third is the right to be safe. Every child has the right to be safe. And the fourth is the coordinated response, which means that at local and a greater organisational level, We have to work together with the relevant governmental agencies. We have to work together to ensure that children are safe and protected. The guidance sets out 4 categories of abuse. Each one has its own signs and symptoms.
The first is neglect, which people often think doesn't happen in the Jewish community. But actually, we know that it's the most common reason for a child to be the subject of a local authority's child protection plan. Neglect can include both physical and emotional abuse. So children who aren't properly fed and children who are starved of emotion and affection. The signs to look out for are children who aren't properly dressed or properly washed, but actually also children who aren't being properly supervised.
The second is signs of physical abuse. Aggression or injuries at home could show up in a number of different ways. It could be obvious, or it could be that a young person is wearing additional clothing to try and hide signs of abuse.
The next form is emotional abuse, which sadly is all too common and is often combined with other forms of abuse. It can come about through behaviour from parents' humiliation, bullying, or even parents' overprotection, and results in a child who is withdrawn, self-critical, unemotional, and badly behaved.
Finally, sexual abuse. We know from experience of other communities and from the accounts of survivors that it can cause lifelong trauma and pain. When we talk about sexual abuse, this can include inappropriate touching, sexual activity, and also grooming through gradually building up a relationship of trust and then abusing that trust. A child who's been sexually abused may demonstrate behaviour that's inappropriate for their age or behave towards others in a manner that's perhaps overly sexualised. They may also develop coping mechanisms, such as controlling eating.
Understanding that it could happen here, we have appointed community safeguarding coordinators across our communities. They should be your first port of call. They in turn will liaise with the central safeguarding team, who will in turn liaise with the authorities. We must also note that where there is an immediate threat to a child's safety, you must call 999.
If you are in a situation in which you are concerned about a child, we ask that you do the following. Be alert, question behaviours, ask for help, and refer on. Although it may not always be appropriate to follow the 4 steps sequentially, if there is an immediate danger, go straight to the police or social care. If a child makes a disclosure to you about abusive behaviour, a recommended approach is as follows. Listen in a calm, concerted way. Ask open questions, and make sure not to put words in the child's mouth. A recommended technique is the TED technique. Tell, explain, and describe.
Ask the child who else they've told, and be sure that they're aware that you can't assure them of absolute confidentiality, because sometimes you need to share that information for their own welfare. But when you do share the information, it should be done through the correct channels, and it shouldn't be shared any more widely than is absolutely necessary. We also need to remember that we must act in the best interests of the child. It's really crucial to obtain accurate information that can then be passed on to the authorities, so please log everything that you can remember immediately and record the time and date of your conversation.
It is clear from lessons learned from the authorities that a child's voice must be heard. We know that people often approach these situations optimistically, hoping for the best, sometimes not really listening to what is being said and not always taking the facts at face value. It can be hard to believe or accept that something as horrendous as abuse is taking place, but it's our obligation to deal with this difficult situation.
It is important that we are clear as to what is or is not our responsibility. It's not for us as staff or volunteers to assess a situation. We must, though, ascertain basic facts and refer on. This takes the burden off us. We shouldn't think too hard about referring. just refer. It's important that we report all suspicions and allegations, including historic ones, so that we take them seriously, responding swiftly and appropriately.
Unfortunately, in today's world, we know there are many risks posed to children. Working in communities, we also need to be aware of what our children are dealing with on a daily basis. Abuse isn't only happening in the corridors of our schools and our homes, but the online environment is being used by predators to groom children. As well as reporting classic abuse situations, we also ask that you are alert to what children in your community may be dealing with. So when you perhaps hear of situations where a child is receiving inappropriate messages, when a child's been threatened online, or even when a child is being asked by an adult to meet up, then please do report these situations as well using the same channels. United Synagogue staff should directly contact the Central Safeguarding Team. Staff based locally may choose to involve their community safeguarding coordinator also. If in doubt, you should always reach out. You can reach out on the emergency safeguarding line on 0203 758 8440. In the event of any emergency, especially the possible or imminent committing of a crime involving children, you should immediately call the police on 999.
The chart which you see in front of you is a chart showing who is involved at the United Synagogue with child protection. At the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a reference to the Community Safeguarding Coordinators. They are the people in each shul who coordinate the child protection activities within the shul. And if you're working within a shul context, they are the people with whom you should liaise in the first instance. Although they are responsible, you are their eyes and ears, and anything which comes to your attention should be brought to their attention in the first instance. Or you can phone us, that is us at Central Office. In the event of any emergency, especially the possible or imminent commission of a crime involving children, you should have no hesitation calling the police on 999.
To recap the main points, as staff and volunteers of the United Synagogue, we have a duty of care to promote the welfare of young people. We also have an obligation to make ourselves aware and follow the procedures.
There are 4 categories of child abuse to be aware of: neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and emotional abuse. Each one has its own signs and symptoms to be aware of.
We should all be vigilant about concerns or disclosures made.
Perpetrators don't have particular characteristics. It is important that we report signs of abuse even when we're worried about the ramifications that they could have within our community.
Please bear in mind confidentiality. Disclosures should be shared with the Community Safeguarding Coordinator and/or the Central Safeguarding Team only.
Keep a written record of any conversations with the child.
Safeguarding children is all of our responsibility. Together, we can create an environment where all our children are protected from harm.
We hope that this video has given an insight into some of the things to look out for and some of the steps you can take. We're all striving to do the best for our communities, and together we all hope to create safe spaces for our children. And we really do thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and we're really grateful to have all our staff and all of our volunteers on board in this important work.